Okay, hello to all you guitarists out there and welcome to Coda Guitar. This is a free level 1 lesson on palm muting. This is a great one for all you rockers out there, really good for typical rock style rhythm playing, which often gets called chugging. That kind of sound. It's often using power chords, as I was there, a G5 power chord, and you're effectively muffling or sort of dampening the sound of the strings slightly, so they don't ring out normally, they're muffled. Now, we're going to be using power chords for most of this, so hopefully you can play 2-fingered power chords using fingers 1 and 3, okay. If not, 2 free beginner lessons, so you can have a look on the beginner lessons page and check those out and come back again and pick up where you've left off. But quick recap, just remember your thumb, you want to be quite sort of far down the back of the neck. Your thumb wants to be behind your first finger, and fingers 1 and 3, 2 frets apart, and you're either pushing down strings 6 and 5 or 5 and 4, depending on which string the root note's on, if it's on the E string or the A string. Okay, so palm muting, like I said, you muffle the sound of the strings, and you do this by using this part of the palm of your hand, and you're effectively resting on this sort of area of the strings round here. So this is the bridge of the guitar, and if you can see, I've got individual saddles here that the strings are sitting on. Your guitar might look slightly different to this. It's almost like the bridge is split in two here, but the principle is exactly the same, whether it's an acoustic or a different type of electric guitar. So what you want to do is you want to rest the palm of your hand right on the edge of the saddles, right on the edge of the bridge, and then holding your pick normally, you just come across and come into a normal picking position, and hopefully you should be muting the strings. Now the open strings ring from this point where they leave the saddle to this point up here where they are resting on the nut right at the end of the neck. So that length there, that is the length of the open string, or open E. So we're actually resting within this point where the string's normally ringing. Okay. So if we use, to start with, an open E power chord, so open E, fret 2 on the A string. Now, if you remember when you're playing power chords, again, this is in the beginner level lesson, but even though they're chords, and we do talk about strumming them, it's probably better to talk about it like being a big pick to start with, because we want to be a bit more controlled. We only want to strum 2 strings at once, basically. So particularly with palm muting, normally, if you can see this, I'm like flicking, that's just some open chords, I'm flicking my wrist like that. You can see that from a different angle, but with the power chords, you're actually moving up and down, so you're not twisting your wrist, you're just moving directly up and down, or moving your wrist from side to side like that. Generally downstrokes, much better for chugging, so you can see that from this angle. So much more controlled than normal strumming, basically. So if you just want to pause this video for a minute and practice that, so resting this part of the side of the palm of your hand on the across the width of all of the strings, and then reach over and see if you've got a nice sort of palm muted, a sort of muffled, dampened sound just on that open E5 power chord. Okay, so how'd you get on? Hopefully you can hear the difference between that and just when you normally play the chord without resting on the strings at all. So if that's the case, you're definitely getting somewhere. Now there's ways where we can actually sort of alter the palm muting. Effectively, we're going to be still resting with the same part of the palm of your hand, but we can move it up and down the length of the string here, and we can rest in different places. So I'll just reset this. So there we go. There's a palm muted position. Sounds all right. I'm going to try moving up the length of the strings now. Okay, so I've moved too far there, and I've actually killed the sound of the note. I've completely muted it, so we can't hear what we call the pitch of the note anymore. I can't hear the fact that it's an E5 power chord, so I need to move back again so I can start to hear the notes. So starting to open up gradually, open up, and I've gone too far there. I'm not actually resting on the strings at all anymore, and so therefore I'm not palm muting whatsoever. So I'll move back again, and I'll get a sound where I think it sounds okay, basically. Now, typically it does get used on electric guitars with a bit of distortion, but you can learn this technique on any kind of guitar. So if you're playing an acoustic, this isn't relevant for you, but when you do get your hands on an electric, with a bit of distortion, it works particularly well. So there's just a little bit of distortion on there, and it can actually be quite useful if you are doing this on an electric to try with a bit of distortion, the sort of typical sound that you want when you're going to be playing songs, and it might help you to hear the difference between the muted and the unmuted chords. So you just want to be shuffling up and down the length of the neck just until you get a tone which you think sounds quite nice. And one more thing, you can actually dig in with your pick a little bit more than you normally do when you're playing chords. So for example here, now there's a decent sort of ring, there's a decent resonance to the strings there, but if I use the same amount of force on the normal open chord, that's not particularly musical, that's too heavy there. So you can actually be a bit heavier than normal, and it allows the muffled, dampened notes to still ring through nicely, so it can improve the tone. All downstrokes, like I said. So again, if you want to pause the video and just sort of have a faff around with that.